Welcome to NFL Nexus. You know, some teams are just haunted by the past. And right now, the Indianapolis Colts are standing at this massive crossroads. It's a problem that's been brewing for years, and it all boils down to that one all-important position, quarterback. What's happening with them right now isn't just some boring contract negotiation. It's really the latest chapter in this long, desperate search for the kind of stability they lost in a single, shocking moment. So to really understand where the Colts are headed, we have to look back at the shadow that they just can't seem to get out from under. All right, let's get into it. And hey, if you're into these deep dives, do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, like this explainer, and definitely drop a comment and let me know what you think. It really, really helps the channel grow.
Okay, so to really grasp the pressure the Colts are under today, we have to rewind the clock. This whole quarterback carousel, this never-ending, painful search for the guy, it didn't just start out of nowhere. It all kicked off with one single moment. An event so sudden, so out of left field, it didn't just shake the team, it sent a shockwave through the entire league. It's one of those where were you when you heard kind of moments for any real NFL fan.
And this quote right here from Andrew Luck himself a few years after the fact, it just puts everything into perspective. He said, walking away from the game was difficult. At some point, I realized I love this game. I mean, you can just feel the weight in those words, right? But you can also hear the peace he finally found. This wasn't some impulsive thing. This was a deeply personal decision about his own future, his own health, both his body and his mind. He had to escape that brutal, relentless cycle of getting hurt, rehabbing, and getting hurt again, just to find a way to love football again, but on his own terms. It's such a powerful reminder of the human side of this sport, and it's the absolute key to understanding just how massive a hole he left behind.
August 24th, 2018, the day the news dropped, and it was just jaw-dropping. We're not talking about some 38-year-old veteran calling it a career. This was Andrew Luck, a once-in-a-generation talent, the guy who was supposed to be the next Peyton Manning, a superstar who was only 29 years old, right in his prime. The news actually leaked while the Colts were in the middle of a preseason game, which created this totally bizarre, sad scene in the stadium. He wasn't just retiring, he was walking away from everything. He later explained through tears at a press conference that the constant cycle of injury, pain, and rehab had just sucked all the joy out of the game for him. For the Colts, it was an absolute catastrophe. In a blink, their cornerstone, their future was gone, leaving this giant void they've been scrambling to fill ever since.
So, Luck's retirement wasn't just an end. It was the beginning of this long, messy journey for the Colts. The team was instantly thrown into this desperate, year-after-year search for his replacement. And this wasn't just about patching a hole on the depth chart. It was a frantic mission to find a whole new identity for a team that had been built brick by brick around their superstar QB. The stability they'd had for decades, first with Manning and then with Luck, it just vanished overnight. And that's really the key to understanding the whole Daniel Jones mess today. It's not happening in a bubble. This quarterback chaos has become the defining feature of the post-Luck era in Indy. Every single offseason, there's a new name, a new hope, and then almost always it's back to square one the next year. It's got to be completely exhausting for everyone involved. The front office, the coaches, and especially the fans who are just dying to finally get off this roller coaster and have some consistency. Every failed attempt just piles more and more pressure onto the next guy, which is exactly why the stakes feel so unbelievably high right now. And this timeline, man, it just lays out the whole painful story. They've tried literally every trick in the book. First, they went with their backup, Jacoby Brissett. Good dude, solid player, but you knew the team wasn't winning a Super Bowl. So then they brought in a legend, Phillip Rivers, for one last dance. He got him to the playoffs, but everyone knew that was just a one-year thing. After that, they got aggressive, trading for Carson Wentz, hoping to fix him. That ended in an epic late-season collapse. So what next? Another veteran, Matt Ryan. And that experiment blew up even faster. Then, finally, they used the number 4 overall pick on a super talented kid, Anthony Richardson. And, of course, his amazing rookie year gets cut short by a injury, which, at long last, led them to the free agent reclamation project, Daniel Jones. I mean, it's just been one reset after another after another.
And that brings us right up to today, and the latest name on that list, Daniel Jones. A guy who showed up in Indianapolis with his own baggage, with a career that's been just as much of a roller coaster as the Colts' own search for a QB. He came to Indy looking for a second chance, a place to prove all the doubters wrong and rewrite his own story. And his story is anything but simple. It's just full of these incredible highs and really, really crushing lows. Seriously, just take a second and look at this career path. It is absolutely bananas. He gets drafted number 6 overall by the Giants, a pick that pretty much everyone laughed at. Then, a few years later, he has this incredible season under Brian Daboll, leads the Giants to a playoff win on the road, and cashes in with a massive 4-year, $160 million contract. He's finally the guy. But then, the very next year, the offense falls apart, he gets hurt, and that giant contract suddenly looks like an anchor. He gets benched, and then, boom, he's released, just 1 year into that huge deal. He even spent a minute on the Vikings practice squad before the Colts threw him a lifeline, a cheap 1-year deal that basically said, show us what you've got. He was betting on himself. And just when it looked like that bet was about to pay off big time, disaster.
And this right here, this is exactly why the Colts have such a hard decision to make. Because before he tore his Achilles in Week 13, Daniel Jones was absolutely winning his bet. His prove-it season was a huge success. I mean, look at these numbers. In 13 games, he's throwing for over 3,000 yards. He's taking care of the ball, 19 touchdowns to only 8 picks, a passer rating over 96, which is really solid. And what's really important, he brought that running element to the offense, adding another 5 touchdowns on the ground. He was playing smart, efficient football, and giving that team the kind of steady hand at quarterback they hadn't seen in forever. This performance is the only reason we're having this conversation. He proved he could be the answer.
But ironically, that great season is what created this gigantic problem. His strong play, then the huge injury, all on an expiring 1-year deal. It's all led to this moment. This is the whole thing right here. The big, franchise-changing, and super expensive decision the Colts absolutely have to make, with that franchise tag deadline just looming.
Okay, so before we talk about the crazy number at the center of all this, we gotta quickly talk about the main weapon the Colts have in their arsenal, the franchise tag. You can think of it as a team's emergency button in free agency. It lets them stop a key player from leaving and hitting the open market by forcing them to play on a 1-year, fully guaranteed contract. The only catch? The salary isn't up for debate. It's a set number calculated by averaging the salaries of the 5 highest paid guys at that position. And for quarterbacks, well, as you can imagine, that number is just astronomical. $47 million. Just let that number sit there for a minute. That's what it would cost, fully guaranteed, to franchise tag a quarterback in 2026. This isn't just a big salary, it's a 1-year contract that would slam into the Colts' salary cap like a wrecking ball. I mean, think about what that does to your team building. If you commit that much money to one player for just 1 season, it makes it incredibly hard to sign other good players or keep the talent you already have. And you'd be doing all of that for a quarterback coming off one of the worst injuries an athlete can have. It is a massive, massive financial gamble.
And this chart just puts that huge financial jump into crystal clear perspective. Last season, Daniel Jones was a steal, playing on that prove-it deal for $14 million. If the Colts hit him with a franchise tag, that salary explodes to $47 million for next season. That is more than a 300% raise. This insane jump is exactly why neither side really wants this. For the Colts, it's a crippling 1-year cap number that ties their hands. And for Jones, yeah, the money's incredible, but it gives him 0 long-term security. He'd have to bet on himself all over again, coming off a major injury.
So this slide lays out the whole chess match perfectly. On one side, you've got path 1, a long-term extension. This is what the Colts really want. It would finally stop the QB carousel. They'd lock up their guy for maybe 4 or 5 years, and most importantly, they could structure the deal so the first-year salary cap hit is way more manageable than that $47 million tag. For Jones, coming off a torn Achilles, a long-term deal is everything. It's life-changing security. Then you've got path 2, the franchise tag. This is the last resort. It keeps Jones in town for 1 more year and gives them more time to talk, but at that brutal cost. And for Jones, it's a huge gamble. He gets a giant payday for 1 year, but then he has to go out and prove it all over again with no safety net.
And all of this just brings us right back to where we started, in a full circle. This whole decision about Daniel Jones, this $47 million question, it's not just about one guy or one contract. It's about the Colts finally, desperately trying to solve a problem that has plagued their franchise for years, a problem that started the second Andrew Luck walked off that field for the very last time. The truth is, the Colts are really stuck between a rock and a hard place, with pressure coming from every direction. First, reports say that both the team and Jones actually want to get a long-term deal done, so that's good. Second, the Colts don't have a lot of leverage here, because their other options are, well, they're not great. The 2026 free agent QB class looks super thin. It's mostly guys you've already seen who aren't franchise changers. And the next draft class isn't seen as having some can't-miss prospect at the top. So they can't just let Jones walk and assume they'll find someone better. And that brings us to the biggest point of all.
They are done with short-term fixes. They just can't keep putting a Band-Aid on this thing. They have to stop the carousel and find a real, permanent solution.
So it all boils down to this one massive question. After all these years, after all the veterans and trades and draft picks, could Daniel Jones, a guy on his own wild redemption tour, finally be the one to fill that hole that Andrew Luck left? Can he be the one to give this franchise the stability it is so desperate for? The answer to that question is going to define the next era of Colts football. What do you think they should do? Pay the man? Tag him? Or just let him walk and roll the dice again? Let me know your game plan down in the comments. And hey, if you like this breakdown and want to support the channel in another way, there's a link in the description to our NFL-themed coloring books. They're actually really cool, great for kids and adults. Thanks for watching The Explainer from NFL Nexus.